put some salt. This is a large steak, so what we are going to do is we're going to season it. And we're putting some salt on. A lot of salt is important, and this is Liam Perrins. It's good for steak. It's a British method of seasoning, but it's good for steak. And you can just cut it a little bit. And then we'll do the other side. I usually put like different. Soy sauce? No, this is Worcestershire. That's how it's spelled. Worcestershire. It's called Worcester sauce, and it's British sauce. Then you can use a seasoned salt. You can use any seasoned salt that you prefer. I'm gonna put seasoned salt or whatever seasoning that you like on your steak. There are other steak seasonings that you can put. So we'll put seasoned salt first, in addition to the salt. The important thing is to try to get the steak well seasoned. I'm gonna add some steak seasoning. I'll rub it in. Okay. So what we're trying to do is just season it. That's it. Whatever seasoning you have, it's good. And then the other side, yeah, that's good. And then we'll put the also on it. Yeah. Well, this is just a recipe trying to copy a meal that we've eaten, and we're trying to figure out how did they do it. So this is probably just an experiment. Alright, thank you. So we're just trying to rub in to the steak as much as possible. And I cut one side open, so let me cut. The idea is to sear the steak and then put it in the oven for it to cook whilst we make the stew. And then we will cut it up and make sure that it's kind of grilled on all sides. So these are the onions. We're cutting up about 6 onions. Some of the onions we blended with the green pepper. And then part of the green pepper will be cut and put in the stew. So you just need the oil at the bottom so that you can sear the meat. So we're going to turn the steak so that we see if it's seared on one side. It's seared a little bit, so we'll turn it anyway. And the onions in the pan, you know, just add flavor to the steak. So that looks great. So while the steak is searing in the pan, we're going to start the stew. We're just going to put some oil in the pan. Now the oil should be at least at the bottom of the pan, so I would say 3 or 4 tablespoons or 5. It depends on your taste. But if it covers the bottom of the pan, it's good. Typically for this stew, we use a little bit more than the usual oil, and at the end of the day, we can scoop some out of the stew. Because the stew, for it to cook for a long time, it has to have sufficient oil. So this is almost like a cup of oil. So we sear the steak for at least 10 minutes, 5 on 5. And now we're just going to put it in the oven for it to kind of roast. And then we will cut it up. So we are ready to put the steak. We just put all the caramelized onions. We're going to add the oil and add a little water. And then we're going to put it over the meat and we're going to cover it with a foil so that it can bake on high in the oven for at least an hour or so whilst we cook the stew. So we're putting in the onions, and like I said, you know, typically you'd want a lot more oil. Most of the onions, we're going to blend it with the green pepper. The green pepper adds flavor, so we will put in this, and we may add some more later so you can see it in. And then we're going to stir it until it caramelizes a little bit, and then we'll look at adding the tomato. Here you see the tomato, the onions are kind of caramelized a little bit, and that adds to the flavor. And then we're going to add tomato paste. Now I'm just going to add a little bit more than usual, just because we're trying to make a certain type of stew. The typical stew is almost about half this. So we're just adding a little bit more. about half the can of tomato paste instead of, say, a third of the can. And this is because of the type of stew that we are making. This is a beef stew to eat with our favorite dish, waakye. So I'm just going to stir this up and make sure it just blends and stews a little bit, and then you'll add the fresh tomato. So we just want this to stir up a little bit. If you have any seasoning you want to add, you can add some at this time. So we're just going to add, we're not going to add salt yet, but we're going to add the seasoned salt. And just let it stew a little bit. You can even add the crushed chili at this time. And then we're going to blend some of the tomatoes with the crushed chili. So I'm just going to add some spices to this. Chili or hot pepper. And then we just add a little bit of seasoned salt. And you can add curry at this time. Anything that you want, you add it. Later on we can add spices like basil, you know, just before, if it's after it's cooked for a while, you can add basil and oregano so that it doesn't get overcooked. So the idea is we're trying to make this stew as dark as possible because that's the kind of stew that we're making. This is an experiment. This is the tomato. Have the blender ready because we just cut it into the blender. Slice it into 4, and then yeah, that's good. I usually do 3 like that, and then it goes in the blender with a little water. So this is a blend of fresh tomato like this, mixed with fresh onion, mixed with green pepper, fresh green pepper, and we're going to put this in the stew. So we just add salt to taste. We just put in some fresh onions just to add to the flavor. Here I'm just going to pour a little bit of the stock that developed from the steak in the oven into the stew. Just trying to get some of the dark color into the stew that we think we're going to get. And then we'll let the steak cook for another 30 minutes to make sure it's well done. And then we'll cut it up and then move from there. Tomato sauce, any tomato sauce will do. And we're just going to put in a little bit. It's about a tablespoon or so. And it just gives it an added sweet flavor to the stew. The stew has been on the fire for about almost 50 minutes, almost an hour. I think it's got another 30 minutes to go. The steak that's been cut up and browned with broiled for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to put that in the stew. And this is how the stew finally is. It's a really nice dark red color. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. And then we're putting in the steak that was seared on both sides with onions, baked in the oven for about 45 minutes, and then cut up and browned on both sides in a broil for about another 10 minutes. So this meal typically does take a while. This is like a 2-hour meal to make. And we're not going to put all the meat in there. This is